It is the 1st of the 12th, 2024. The time is 10:05 and there are 3 F1 threads at which we need to put. Of course, we've got to talk, Max, because the F1 community has reacted with disenchantment, even hatred, confusion at the penalty that it received at the hands of the FIA. We'll talk Checo, and first up on the docket, we'll talk some Sir Lewis Hamilton, because the dude is doing nothing if not flip-flopping. One day it's I don't have pace, the next day it's I do have pace. Which one is it, Sir Lewis? Going through a crisis of confidence, some say. His latest tidbit is, at this point I don't really care. Quote, I just want to get through these next couple of races. I'm looking forward to the winter break. No kidding, Sherlock, Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton. You can see in his driving, again for the avoidance of doubt, the type and brand and timing of his mistake is peculiar. Each and every single time at this point, it feels like it's happening in Sector 3 in Q3. Okay, yesterday in qualifying, he lost a lot of time in Sector 2, but principle, the most material of deltas, always seems to come in Q3, and he'll need to fix for that. Will one Sir Lewis Hamilton going into 2025. Maximilian Verstappen, however, begs to differ with what so many people are saying of Sir Lewis. Max Verstappen says, quote, Lewis Hamilton is so good that he will never lose it. David Coulthard, well, he's playing a different tune. He said it's pretty worrying of Sir Lewis Hamilton that it doesn't detract from his brilliance or this latest stuff, the struggles in head-to-head against one George Russell, first of his name, but it doesn't take away from the records. But there is a thing called Mother Nature, and for Lewis Hamilton at 39, soon to be 40 years old, David Coulthard asserts that the clock is ticking over humanity. Oh, and by the way, Checo Perez, I feel like I need to issue an apology out to that chap, because everybody's chiming in on green light gate. Christian Horner said, when there's a green light, when the green light goes out, that means you go. Well, not quite correct, Christian. As far as the pit lane procedure is concerned, when there is a green light, that means you go. Checo Perez contends, however, he was talking with his race engineer, and the whole assignment yesterday in sprint race for Checo Perez, man formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense, of course, was to get some clean air and treat it as a testing session. Do I go before Colapinto or do I go after, was his question to the race engineer. And his race engineer said to let Franco Colapinto go. Hence why, when the green light came on, Checo Perez, you can see him on the onboard, was looking at Franco Colapinto, waiting for him to go so that he could do a test proper. And props to Checo Perez for once. Sounds weird me saying this, but listen, but for those Checo Perez testing sessions, the snappy oversteer, the uncertainty that Maximilian Verstappen was experiencing on combined entry and at the apex, by dint of that RB20 and its multitudinous technical and mechanical travails, they wouldn't have gone away. Maximilian Verstappen, some say, has his showing in qualifying to thank on Checo Perez and his testing in sprint race. Oh, and by the way, let's talk about Max Verstappen, because the community aren't happy, are they? Getting very, very techie. But Max is getting persecuted, no, victimised. This is British Bias 101, is it not? There's a brilliant post on Reddit. I'm going to read some of it out to you. It says as follows, that I want to believe that Hanlon's razor is at play here. Hanlon's razor is, of course, the aphorism that dictates that you should never attribute to malice that which you can attribute to stupidity. And the FIA over the past 24 to 36 months have been nothing if not stupid, getting rid, as near as makes no difference, of all of their top tier race director. Wittich is gone, Mayer is gone, Nielsen is gone, they're all going. Most recently, it's Janet Tan. They're getting rid of all of them. Rue Marquez is overseeing F2 and F1 at the same race weekend. And Charlie Whiting, the legend that is, he couldn't even do that. Remco, your legend. Controversial take. George deliberately drove into traffic in order to throw a wrench into others' plans. I will get to that, Remco, because Max Verstappen thinks as you do. Here's what this person says on Reddit. That it's not Hanlon's razor, because FIA are doing so frequently now at the behest of Maximilian Verstappen. If yesterday's penalty is a case in point, why are they giving that out even? This stuff happens nearly every race. Even Checo Perez had a bout of that during qualifying yesterday. So many cars on the track, all of them competing for the same piece of track. It makes sense that this has to happen, right? There are very many automotive pugilistic spinning plates that they need to manage concurrently to Delta, as per George's assertion. You can't go so slow all the time because that's dangerous, but then you need to manage your tyres, you need to bring them in, you need to manage for your outlap specification and circumstance, and then you need yourself a piece of track that you can attack the hot lap on the next lap. This is techier than techie things, some would say. And this person on Reddit says, look, in Las Vegas, there were 17 cars who were deemed to have done what Max Verstappen did yesterday, impeding. None of them were even investigated. So why now then, the FIA, are we investigating Max Verstappen and giving him a 1-place penalty? If indeed it's worthy of punishment, give him a 3-place surely. Well, it was mitigating circumstances, they said. Well, what were the mitigating circumstances? Well, of course, George saw Maximilian Verstappen. Then why give him a penalty at all? This is what the masses and the F1 community more broadly are saying. It doesn't make sense. And Maximilian Verstappen was prophetic in the press conference post-qualifying. Here's what he said, quote, of the incident between him and George Russell, unnecessarily, in inverted commas, driving slowly. There were 2 cars in front of me also making a gap, so I had to make a gap ahead of my hot lap, the 4-time champion said, and I knew that everybody was also on a slow lap, not a push lap. And then I think George got excited, he wanted to pass and get around. That's fine. I mean, everyone, of course, tries to get their position to have the best possible start to the lap. Maximilian Verstappen, 4-time champion, continues thus, and I quote, "If they take my pole away, then of course it doesn't make sense at all. We were all just driving slowly. I wouldn't know what I could have done differently. The fact that I have to go there to the stewards is really strange to me. Otherwise, next time, here's what I'll do," says Max Verstappen. "I'll just drive full throttle too and pretend that I'm going to crash everywhere. Then George should have braked. I'm braking too, aren't I?" George Russell gets techie here. George Russell, let me say something about George Russell. Watching the driver's press conference, I will put forth this. George Russell is no slouch. And as far as racing against and politicking versus one Lando Norris, doing the same thing to King George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, first of his name, is a very different proposition. His whole demeanour and countenance when sat next to Maximilian Verstappen, very different from that of Lando Norris. Lando Norris becomes subservient. Yeah, we're best friends. He's almost there to massage Maximilian Verstappen's back, isn't he? Or that's at least how it appears in the press conference by dint of his demeanour and countenance. George Russell, on the other hand, is not having it from Maximilian Verstappen. This isn't me saying that George Russell was right. I believe, as per friend of the channel Peter D. Windsor, that the FIA were wrong. Indeed, if past this prologue and precedent is a thing that should be followed in Formula One, then they shouldn't be giving out that penalty, because everybody does that every single qualifying session. It's almost a cost of doing qualifying business. But I will say this. I enjoy the fact that George Russell is looking to give us some proper racing. He's said a gazillion occasions and he's looking to follow through on it. He won't kowtow down to one Maximilian Verstappen. And that, for all of the F1 community, fans all over the world, that represents an interesting conundrum for which Maximilian, should Mercedes give George Russell a car next year, will need to solve for. But for the avoidance of doubt, FIA, you need to sort out business. Stand on business. Employ some people, some full-time stewards, and pay them commensurate to their not insubstantial skills, with a view to solve for this problem, because it's not going anywhere. For the avoidance of doubt, the FIA consistently inconsistent. Nothing new then. In other news, rain is still wet. What are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury? But I digress.